I took an edible and I'm really sensitive to them right now because I haven't been using
Yeah,
much.
I could already see because your eyes are so tiny. It's like Chinese
Yep.
Dr. Tony Huge.
Yep.
So this could be probably the greatest intro on podcast I ever had yet. So welcome.
Oh, and my girlfriend did want to say hi to the audience also.
So hey everyone, this is MC Stories podcast by Mario Crkon, and right here, probably everyone knows who this is. This is Dr. Tony Huge. Just took an edible. He's a great person. I love the way like he uh, is on social media, like he presents his life how it truly is. He doesn't play on anything. He just what he really lives he puts on social media, and he's a very honest and open person. And if you hear our previous podcast, you can already get very knowledgeable things that you will use later in life, because I think we covered pretty good things. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I also think if anyone's listening to the beginning of the episode and by audio only, and they couldn't see the video, and I introduced my girlfriend, and then there was a silence, that's because it's a sex doll. For those of you who are only able to access audio.
Yeah, we in our previous podcast we covered COVID-19. So everyone who isn't just listening to media and actually has their own thinking can listen to that podcast, and I think pretty good amount of people that are listening are gonna agree with the things we said. We also covered food allergies and sensitivities, which in that podcast already, like from Slovakia, like 30 people messaged me like how much the podcast changed their life. Like they actually didn't think about it like with that way, you know. So just the podcast opened their mind to this other way of thinking. And also we covered the pharmaceutical companies and all this and our opinions on it, and just different perspective that I think it's the most lacking thing of modern society.
Yep. Yep. All good stuff. So what are we covering today, Mario?
I'd like to cover some of your protocols and what you're actually trying to promote in like few days or weeks, because you just had an accident and you're trying to heal yourself as fast as possible. So if you would describe to listeners the accident, how it happened, and how fast are you trying to walk again, and give them some kind of preview on what you're doing, on what will the protocol be consisting of. I mean, you don't have to tell the whole protocol, because they can find that at your site, because the protocol will probably change in these couple days. So if you can describe what happened. And
Okay, I got in a motorbike accident here in Thailand. There was sand on the road. I started driving a little bit more aggressively lately on the scooter, and I tried to stop, and the brakes locked up, and I threw my body under the scooter. So it crushed my ankle, and I hit the side of my body really hard, but I have a huge amount of muscle, and the muscle really took the hit. No bruises. I mean, it kind of feels like someone hit me with a baseball bat, but no visible bruises, just the scratches, the asphalt on the skin. I think if someone didn't have a good amount of muscle to cushion, in my situation, they would have broken their elbow, shoulder, hip, knee, something else. So the muscle really was a huge benefit. It wasn't just for looks. It was actually help protect my body. To heal my tendons, joints, and ligaments in my ankle, I'm taking Anavar, BPC 157, TB 500, HGH, glucosamine, chondroitin, MSM, collagen, fish oil, and I'm sure there's something else, but those are most important ones. So the goal is to make not just a faster recovery, but a full recovery, because most people, when they get injured, their body doesn't fully recover. And it's my hypothesis that if we do this protocol earlier, we have a better chance of actually fully recovering, like back to how it was, rather than always having some deficiency. So I'm doing this treatment along with it. Now, other people have existing injuries for long periods of time, and they realize they are only 70% healed. That, you know, they hurt their elbow and it just always hurts after that. It never fully healed. Then they do a protocol like this, and sometimes it'll actually resume the healing process. So you have people who thought that they were never going to heal an injury, and then they start something even just like the MK677, which is, I think, been more effective than injectable HGH for injury recovery.
Yeah, because
And
it works
starts
24
healing
hours.
again. Yeah. See, when we test HGH for injury recovery, we see much larger doses make a bigger difference, or more frequency makes a bigger difference. Just more growth hormone in general. It's almost like you're going to get the healing you want out of 300 units of growth hormone. Now you have the choice. You're going to do the 300 units of growth hormone in, a couple weeks and megadose it and get fast recovery, or you're going to do that 300 units over 6 months, and then it'll take that long to take effect. Seems like HGH works like that for injury recovery and muscle building, but not the fat loss. The fat loss, HGH, is more, it doesn't take much to trigger that, so it's more about the length of time that it's in the system.
Yeah, but I love the thing that you mentioned, that most people don't fully recover, because that's actually what's the best part that you say, that people actually don't realize this, because they think they just tear their tendons and ligaments in elbow and stuff, and they're like, after 2 years of trying to get together, they're like, oh, it still hurts. Doctor told me that it will hurt like forever, like it's a lifetime injury, it won't fully recover never, and it's gonna hurt, but I'm okay with it. And they can't even do like sports they were doing, and they live in this illusion that doctor told them that it's never gonna be like it was before, and they have to live with this their whole life. But see, that's the thing I love about you, that you mentioned this right away, that most people aren't healed, and there's like 70% of natural healing. The other 30% is done by enhancement, right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And
Yep.
there's so little people that talk about this, and people live with the what doctors tell them, and they don't listen to people they should. And that's the point. It's because there's so little of us that actually spread this, so the people can't even get to information. And this is the problem
So,
of the whole medicine and whole
yeah.
body. Like, you have this
And
chemistry
the problem
that
the
can heal
problem with
everything.
people's stubbornness too. I was on a cruise ship, and everybody's going around the table talking about kind of what they do, and then I say kind of what I do, and they start asking me questions about all the pain in their body. So we got a whole table at the cruise ship asking me about each one of their pain problems, and I gave them all the solutions that I know would fix it from my experience. And I know it was just conversation to them. They aren't actually going to take any action to solve anything. And at that moment, because I've had these conversations one-on-one so many times, but never with a whole table to this degree, and saw everybody react the same way, which is, I'm really good at reading people when I'm not super high. And I could read them that they were just talking about their pain and solutions for the sake of conversation with no action intended. And that blew my mind, because I guess why I'm good at all this is I see a problem with everything, and I know that every problem has a solution. So I'm constantly in my mind finding problems, finding solutions. And when you go through that process enough, you learn a huge amount of information.
Yeah, exactly. And even with the reading, I kind of think I have that skill as well, because when I talk to someone like, let's say, a business or maybe nutrition consultation, I already when I only need the people to say like 2 or 3 sentences, and I already know if they're really going to do that, or if they will do what they said, or if it's just trash talk and it's gonna go to shit.
Yep. Yep. And for some people it's an intuition, and for other people it's kind of a science and studying body language and all that.
Yeah, what do you think? For you, it's combination, or it's like body language studying, or it's intuition?
No, it's intuition, but my mind reads, 1,000 little variables, and it compares it to my subconscious, what my subconscious has learned from previous experiences where there's anything in common in that situation. So it's a subconscious intuitive thing, but it's pretty effective because the subconscious is building its reality based on reality, so it works.
And what do you think is the length till you fully recover with these chemicals?
My ankle,
Yeah.
I think I'll be walking in a week from the accident. Although I might even take it more, I might even be more cautious because I really want to make sure this heals well and not put pressure on it too early. And I think I'll be working legs like normal, except for no heavy squats and deadlifts in less than a month. But I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to squat and deadlift that heavy, anyways. So the real quality of life impact is probably only going to be a couple weeks. And the quality of life impact's not that bad because I'm in Thailand where I can literally get anything delivered to my condo at any time that I could ever want.
And what did the doctors at Thailand told you? How much it's gonna take to recover?
Well, the doctor actually said I should be able to walk in a week, but he also said I'm pretty heavy. So, I'm going to have to be careful with my body weight on the ankle, of course, right? The ankle has to be stronger to support a heavier body weight. Now the ankle's broken. Now it's even weaker than someone who's even lighter. So it's going to be a risk of re-injury. But he said walking in a week. And at the time, I'm like, no, he didn't mean that. Like, I'm just going to pretend I'm in America. And I heard, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, because my ankle was so swollen and it felt like it's dislocated. Like I can't move it. So I'm like, this is not gonna, like, I have had small injuries and I know how long those take to heal. And this is a very, very big injury. It's big short of breaking a bone. But I mean, I think it kind of took my foot off my ankle. And, I was nervous, like it wasn't going to go back in. They're going to have to re-break it or something. So it was a lot of pressure on the ankle. But it just doesn't really matter. I'm not too uncomfortable until then. I'll be walking again pretty soon. So I guess because I compare it to most motorbike accidents, I've met a lot of people who had serious injuries from motorbike accidents, and a lot of people have died also. So for me to have such a minor injury, that's why I'm saying I think it's still going to take longer though. So with the protocol, it's more about healing it completely. I think I'm still going to baby the foot for just as long as I would anyways. But I'm hoping it's 2 days in. I'm hoping I'll be walking. I could walk on it at 5 days.
Yeah, but you looked pretty calm when it happened. Like you were posting stories on Instagram, and I mean, I would be
Yeah.
shocked, but you looked pretty calm. Did it hurt a
Yeah,
lot?
I hadn't tried to put my foot on the I hadn't tried to walk yet. So I was still thinking I could walk. I was just favoring the other leg. And then when I tried to put a little body weight after on it and realized like my foot was pretty much like disconnected, like I couldn't move my foot. So I was like, "Oh my god, are the nerves broken? Are the bones broken? Like is it ever going to go back in?" So yeah, I was calm, but at the same time it was, there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong that didn't. So thank goodness. My foot is all swollen. It's so bad right now because I've been working at the table all day, every day, besides a little short trip to the gym every other day, and my foot's down, and so my foot just keeps swelling up more and more. Elevating it is really important.
Yeah, yeah, makes a huge part of it. I feel the same way because in the last couple 5 or 6 months I have inflammation in knee with arthritis. And a lot of times I sit down and work in front of the laptop and shit, and people say like you're sitting, it's okay, it's gonna the inflammation is gonna go away, but I feel it totally like when I have the feet down, like you said, and I'm working in front of the laptop, like it gets even more swollen than if I would be like walking or something for me.
Yeah, yeah. So yep, that's what I got to learn. Got to learn to keep it up. And I did ask my female girlfriend, like an alternative medicine doctor, about icing it, and she said it's not going to make a difference at this point. It's too late. Like icing it in the beginning is really helpful, and then as it goes on, it becomes less and less helpful. So it's all about elevation right now, she said.
So what's the next thing you're incorporating to help recover the injury?
Uh, so it's the elevation. I'm blasting a lot of TB 500 and BPC 157. Still growth hormone every other day. The glucosamine control college, and when I can start moving it, then it's physical therapy time. So I'll I want to make sure I move it in every direction, under every angle, and build its strength up, because when you have a lot of muscle, this is important for people to understand as they get stronger. Like let's say for example, you get really strong at the bench press, but you don't usually do shoulder press. You're gonna get stronger at shoulder press because certain of the muscles that are involved in shoulder press have gotten very strong, but some other of the muscles, joints, tendons, and ligaments have not gotten stronger because you haven't been doing that movement. So what can happen as a bodybuilder, the more muscle you get, the stronger you get. You can actually get injured very easily because you're so strong at some angles, and some muscles are so strong and some may not be. So it's very important as a bodybuilder to sort of cross-train the muscle, train different angles. If you're training on an incline bench, then sometimes try slightly different incline to get different angles, and do some mobility work and stretching and all these things. It really makes a big difference. And so with my ankle, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work it from every angle, and work on balancing it. And some of that is my own knowledge, and some of that was coming from competitive, I don't know what you'd call it, calisthenics trainer at the gym. He's a world trainer for calisthenics athletes, and trains people how to build performance, not necessarily muscle. Actually, definitely not muscle. That's not a priority for them, right? They care about performance of the muscle, being able to be as strong as possible for your body weight from every possible angle. And that approach is really helpful for injury rehabilitation.
Nice. I also seen like right now on your Facebook you mentioned like you're experimenting with TB 500, GHB, and kratom. Does kratom help also the pain relief?
Yeah, so kratom I took today. An interesting thing is everybody has a different sensitivity to it. So I'm actually very sensitive. I took a very small amount, and this is grown in a friend of a friend's yard. They grow naturally. The kratom trees grow naturally in Thailand. And they've actually been illegal in Thailand for the longest time, which is funny because it's a natural wild growing tree that's all over the place. Like, how could they make something illegal that's naturally growing all over? But they're going to legalize it. And if they have started taking steps towards it, I think. But I drank a little bit today, and it made me feel a little bit. My whole body feel like a little bit of that numb, buzzy feeling, which is a good feeling, and that helps with pain. And then another friend was over here, and he took a whole bunch. He drank a whole 5 times as much as I did. He's like, I still don't feel it. How crazy is that? But yeah, it helps. It helps with getting rid of the pain. Remember, I'm not trying to get rid of the pain completely. I avoided taking any Western medicine pain medications because I want to feel if I move my ankle the wrong way or I'm putting pressure on it the wrong way. I want pain to be the warning not to do whatever it is I'm doing because it could exacerbate the injury and prevent repair. So I want some pain, but not to the point where, like last night, the pain in my knee, I didn't realize, I guess I injured my knee a little bit worse than I thought because last night the pain in my knee was so bad it was really hard to sleep.
You know what's funny? That we've been talking about kratom like 2 years ago, I think, maybe. And it got right now to Slovakia, and like it's a big boom, and everybody started using it. Many bodybuilders started using it, and some of them become so addicted to kratom that they take it like every hour or every 2 hours, like 5 or 6 times a day.
As far as addictions go, it's actually not that bad of an addiction, so that's fine. It's still not as addicting, I don't think, as caffeine, not as addicting as alcohol, not as addicting as cigarettes, and it's got health benefits. So yeah, even though, yeah, sure, it can be addicting to some people. For me, it is not addicting at all. Like for me, it's the opposite. If I feel it and I feel good one day, the next day I'm like, I don't really want to feel it today. I don't feel like, oh my God, now it's the second day, I need more, and I need more on the third day. No, I like the way it feels when I'm on it, but then I also appreciate not being on it just as much.
When we talk about kratom, there's one thing I wanted to ask you because a lot of people ask me about it. It's like using red kratom for sleep. On one side, it has sedative effects, and you feel tired because of from what I studied, it's because of it has too much alkaloids. It has the most amount. But if the sleeping and tired effects are from overdosing with it, or it's because it's special sedative strain, do you think it's like it's good using it for sleep? Like, do you think it doesn't worsen up your quality of sleep? Or
So I think all of it is okay for sleep, but there's two main different alkaloids. And we'll just say alkaloids are like the chemicals that are active in the plant that act sort of like a drug. So you take something like kratom, it has many, many different alkaloids, but there's two that have been isolated as being the most, that kratom is the most famous for, and that are the most, that we've identified as being the most effective. And that's mitragynine. And there's another one that's more powerful. It's like 5 times more powerful, and I think is it 5 alpha hydroxy mitragynine.
I think seven alpha.
7 alpha hydroxymitragynine or something like that. So what happens is when you have like a white or a green kratom, it's got a lot of the mitragynine and a lot less of the 7. I wish I could remember 7 alpha hydroxymitragynine or whatever. And the way that you get the 7 alpha hydroxymitragynine is an oxidative conversion from mitragynine. So it's a reaction to oxygen. So it's like the tea plant. People are shocked to find out that green tea, matcha, white tea, black tea, oolong tea, yerba mate. They all come from the same plants. It's just that the leaves are harvested at different times or they're aged differently. But it's all things that happen, after the tree is grown or the plant is grown. And it's similar with the kratom plant. The kratom plant, yes, there's many different strains. Yes, the soil and the weather conditions in which it's grown affects the alkaloid profile. But the main thing it comes down to is how much mitragynine versus the 7-alpha-hydroxymitragynine. Again, I'm not sure if I'm saying the chemical name right. So I did an experiment a few years back in Mexico where I took a white or a green strain that was very high in mitragynine and very low in the 7-alpha-hydroxymitragynine, and I run it through an oxidative process, and I converted the mitragynine to the 7-alpha-hydroxymitragynine, and it had the sedative effects. So it just goes to show it is that 7-alpha-hydroxymitragynine that has the sedative effects, in which the red kratom is just higher in that amount. And so you can choose, like, if you want more of a sedative effect, you can take a strain or take the red kratom that has more of that in it. And if you want more energizing, you want less of that. Now the pain killing effect is much stronger in the sedative part in the 7-alpha-hydroxymitragynine. So if I want to use kratom mainly for killing pain or for sleep, then I want more of the red strain usually, which usually has more of the 7-alpha-hydroxy, the oxidated mitragynine.
Yeah, I tried experimenting with kratom for arthritis pain, and it helped a lot. But for me, I think it helps with the pain, but it doesn't get the inflammation away. What do you think about that?
Right. Yes, that's right. How is your arthritis condition going?
It's right now it's pretty bad. It's like it's okay for 2 days, and then I get swollen, mostly just knees and ankles. Upper part of the body is okay, just a little elbow pain, but mostly it's, for the most part, the only thing that's causing problem for me is like the water gets into the joint and swells it up. And with my knee, like, I barely can walk upstairs because I can bend the knee enough, because there's so much water in there that I can bend the knee. Even like my fingers are like, if you can see it, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like this left one is like so much swollen.
So does the knee feel very stiff and
Yeah.
it feels like it's aching?
Yeah.
Okay, I know that feeling. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Then that way when I'm doing my other research, I come across stuff. There was something I came across for arthritis today. I just can't remember what it was. Another thing to add to the checklist. What we should really make is like a troubleshooting list. When you have a broken computer, first you try to turn it off and turn it back on. And then if that doesn't work, then you try this, then you try that. We should make a troubleshooting list for arthritis saying, okay, first try the thing that's the easiest to try or the most obvious that could be the most likely to be the problem, and then work your way down to the less common causes or the more difficult things to test. That's a good project we should talk about later.
Yeah, what I've come up to lately is like with the brand I'm working with Yankovic Nutrition, we came with a product called Immunopower. It's for immune system, and it's like full list of herbs and natural things. And what I found is that it doesn't like boost your immunity, but it regulates it. Like if you have understimulated immune system, it's gonna boost it, and if you have overstimulated, it's gonna let the immune system go down to a natural way. So I'm trying to do mega doses of that, and it helped quite a lot. Also, CBD helps a lot. I feel like it does help regulate the immune system as well.
Okay, awesome.
What do you think
Yeah.
CBD for autoimmune diseases?
I don't know, but it does help some people with inflammation. As far as helping the body identify what tissue is foreign and needs to be attacked versus not, or preventing an immune reaction to something. I don't know whether the cannabinoid network, I don't know what you call the cannabinoid network, has anything to do with that. I've seen charts where they show the cannabinoid system in the body's connected to everything, in which case it's possible that CBD could help almost everything in the body to some small extent, or it could be a limiting factor. I could say the deficiency in CBD could be a limiting factor to healing. So like, let's say the main cause is something else, but if you have enough cannabinoids in your system, then that removes that as a limiting factor to the healing process that something else contributes to. But yeah, I don't know specifically about CBD and arthritis. You know, in the US, it's so advanced now that they isolated, you know, this cannabinoid helps with this condition, and this strain of cannabis has more of this cannabinoid, so this strain is good for arthritis. It's gotten very specific. I don't know if it's like that in Slovakia or
Both CBD and THC are banned here, illegal, even CBD.
Yeah,
It's like
that's a shame.
there are only 2 countries in Europe where CBD is illegal. I think it's Slovakia and probably it was Croatia, but I think even Croatia legalized it lately. So probably the only country.
Yeah, it's going to take overwhelming popular demands to legalize it, probably, because it's still way too profitable for big pharma to suppress natural remedies like CBD. And as it progresses, I think CBD could be a much bigger medical solution to many more problems. I mean, so far we've figured out that, okay, this strain's good for that and that and that. Imagine, I mean, in a natural form, these things may be better because they work together, the different cannabinoids. But eventually we will isolate which cannabinoid is responsible for every little thing and be able to create synthetic versions also. And the problem with that is that the pharmaceutical companies are suppressing the legalization of cannabis in order to give them time to create pharmaceuticals using those cannabinoids. So it's like the pharmaceutical industry admits that cannabis is a miracle drug, but they're still paying to suppress it so that they have time to monopolize it.
Yeah, exactly. They have to patent only like the single cannabinoid, which won't work because both of us know that they have to be in full spectrum and to all these terpenes and stuff to work. So it's gonna be like 10% of the efficiency, if even that.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So they will patent it, and they will create a pharmaceutical for it and get it and make it a prescription drug, and it will still only be 10% as effective as the natural herb. And they'll still say, oh, but the natural herb could have side effects. That's why it's no good. Yeah, maybe it has first of all, no relevant side effects. But even if it did, it's 9 times more powerful, effective.
What about CBD and THC for your ankle recovery? Do you incorporate it?
Okay, so I have THC and CBD, and I have prescription for it here in Thailand. Normally, I want the THC just for the psychoactive effects, and I'm actually less interested in the CBD. But when I have an injury like this with inflammation, then I do want more CBD. So I'm using sources that have both THC and CBD in it instead of just prioritizing the THC right now.
What do you think about the synergy with CBD with THC? Do you think that CBD alone can be pretty potent, but it can be even more potent with THC?
Yes. But the reason why I usually like to take something with less CBD and more THC is it seems like you can get a lot more high with a lot less THC when you have less CBD. Something about the CBD seems to minimize lessen the psychoactive effects of the THC.
It blocks it out
So,
of the brain receptors.
yeah. So that's why we did the experiment where I would take the edibles, like in Enhanced, the movie. We'd take the edibles and then take. Well, actually, in that movie, it was a blunt.
It was a big joint with the covered with the THC oil, right? If
Yes,
I remember
yes,
correctly.
exactly.
And then it
But
was
the purpose of the experiment was to see if we could maybe use CBD in the morning after using THC edible at night to get rid of the hangover. So it just goes to show that I think it does. I think the CBD does clear the THC from the receptors in the brain.
Yeah, from the movie, from what I've watched, it's been like you've been only high from the CBD, because the CBD has if you overdose with CBD, it's kind of high, like really mild high. So from what I've seen, it's that you've already not been high with THC, it's been high from the CBD. From what I've seen from the movie.
Yeah, so the THC high is like you lose your short-term memory. You some people get paranoid. I don't get paranoid. Well, I was just talking about me. So if I'm really high on THC, like my head feels like it's in the clouds in a good way. I walk to the refrigerator. I can't even remember the reason I walked to the refrigerator by the time I get there, type thing, which is fun, which is great. I'm not saying it's a negative thing. It's actually really fun to be on, and it changes my state of mind in a good way. I feel like no negative side effects with it. I might be loss of memory temporarily, but the CBD high is just relaxing. It doesn't diminish your mental capacity at all. It's like you could perform any function or task perfectly fine. You're not impaired, but you're very relaxed.
So you're incorporating THC and CBD into the recovery. I think
Yeah.
the most way it helps is probably to sleep, that if you have more deep sleep, which is an important part of the recovery as well.
I agree with that. That is the most important part of it. And something about the pain, like sometimes it doesn't bother me, and sometimes it's not like pain that I'm like, oh my God, I need to take a pain pill. It's more like annoying and just distracting. Like it's hard to sleep when your mind when you're sleeping, it needs to like go over here, but instead it keeps getting brought back thinking about your leg. And the cannabis allows the mind to get into the clouds. Like for anybody who hasn't tried it for sleep, I'll say so, like here's one of the reasons it's given me some of the best sleep ever is when you close your eyes, if you're completely aware and thinking about your surroundings, like you're thinking about the bed and the walls and whatever noise you hear, it's hard to sleep. The mind has to escape. And on the cannabis, it's almost like it makes me a little dizzy. When I lay down, I completely lose all the senses of what's going around me, and my head goes, I say, into the clouds. So I can fall asleep quickly and much deeper without the distraction of the physical environment around me.
And what else you're using? You're also doing GHB experiment.
Yeah, so we'll call that research. There's a lot of different related compounds to it. What I like about GHB is it's got no toxicity, other than there was some studies that chronic usage can have some very small amount of toxicity in the brain, which is canceled out by melatonin. Melatonin is like a brain antioxidant. It's a hormone that gets triggered that makes us want to have better quality sleep as part of our circadian rhythm and in response to the absence of light. And there's so many things in our unnatural environment to decrease melatonin. I take melatonin as a supplement, and the melatonin also protects the brain from any side effects from GHB. So take melatonin, all of a sudden there are zero side effects of GHB. Even the side effects of GHB don't outweigh, are so far outweighed by the benefits, it doesn't matter. But the thing is, these other analogs that are similar to GHB, we don't know as much about the toxicity about them. So I'm trying to figure out the risk versus benefit on other related compounds.
How many milligrams of melatonin do you take?
So the sleep juice has 500 micrograms or something. It's something really low. And normally I was taking 3 milligrams, and I would take a tablet of it before. And I started researching melatonin probably 20 years ago, maybe more, maybe 25 years ago. And maybe I put a lot of time into it, maybe 12 years ago. And at the time, the summary of what I concluded was that taking a low dose of melatonin was pretty much the same effectiveness for quality of sleep as taking a high dosage, and that there was no addiction to it. There was no such thing as taking too much, but it was kind of like going with the minimum effective dosage. Probably 1 milligram was more than enough. I think 500 micrograms was already effective enough also. So I always erred on the side of lower dosage just because it was the minimum effective dosage. Now, since then, I've got some friends that take 10 milligrams because they say the more the better, and they can feel the difference. So it's great for them. I don't think I've ever taken 10 milligrams. Actually, now that we're talking about it, I have a friend that has 10 milligram tablets. He gave me 6 of them, and he told me to take 30 milligrams, and he said it would work like magic. Think about this, 30 milligrams, that's 30 times the dosage that I was taking before. So I've never tried megadosing it. Have you?
Yeah, I tried. I haven't seen any additional benefits from it.
Okay.
And
I
I have
think
a
the
friend
studies
researched
didn't
it,
show.
and he said like the average natural production is like 100 micrograms, and he's
Right.
basically said the same thing. He was like 300 micrograms is enough, and anything more than that is just gonna cause imbalance in the body and not gonna have any additional benefits.
Yeah, so that's what my research from a long time ago said, but things change, So then we have Canadian Trevor, who, same thing that you're saying. He thinks that 500 micrograms is great. It's a huge benefit. But he says the more you take, the more you risk you're decreasing your body's own natural production. But I don't know, that kind of contrasts what I read before, which is that there is no withdrawal, there is no tolerance, there is no decrease in natural production if you supplement with it. So I still have to study it more, but just out of an abundance of caution, I don't megadose it on a regular basis. I do on a regular basis take a small amount. I think that there's this big argument about what's natural and unnatural, and I think we're in such an unnatural environment. This is a great example of where taking a supplement is more natural to get our brain levels back to what our natural sleeping brain levels of melatonin are, because it would be pretty much impossible to have a natural sleep situation in modern day age with electronics.
Yeah, I mean, like basically you couldn't even light up to go to the bathroom or have any kind of light, basically, because
Yeah,
right now everywhere it's like LED lights only.
and I even read some kind of study before that the eyes aren't the only organ that senses light, that the skin can sense light. And so if you block the light to your eyes, your skin can still tell, and can't tell the difference between artificial light and regular light, as a sign that it's time to wake up and it's daytime, which disrupts the sleep cycle. I mean, this is one reason my lights in my room are red, because at least red is the opposite of blue. Well, not technically the astral opposite, but it doesn't have blue color in it, so that way it doesn't at least trigger the blue light reception in the body. You know, blue light is what is the main color the body determines if it's daylight and time to wake up or not. So at nighttime, I have red lights on.
And maybe so you can feel like in red light district.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. I feel at home. I feel at home when the red lights are on, and when I've got a bar girl that doesn't speak English. It feels like home to me. Look at, she's wearing her scary mask.
What are the other things you're going through experimenting? I think I've read the TB 500. You said you were doing megadoses of that.
Yeah. So I'm taking. I was gonna take like a third of a vial twice per day. Now I'm gonna take it up to, just because it's so important to heal my ankle. I'm gonna do half a vial. Ooh, I'm gonna start doing half a vial twice a day. Yeah, going forward for the next 5 days. So I'll basically use 5 vials over the next 5 days of TB 500.
You know, maybe I should do a research. I never tried locally putting TB 500 in the inflamed joint for arthritis. Maybe that's gonna be
Interesting. Yeah.
helpful. Also,
Yeah.
the EPC 157 is very similar to that.
Yeah, I'm taking the same amount. So half a vial. I'll be doing half a vial twice a day. So 1 vial per day of BTC 157 over the next 5 days.
And then
You know, come to think of it, my foot feels, after elevating it now for 30 minutes, my foot feels slightly better. Like I think the swelling just from that may be going down a little bit.
and what are the other things maybe that you can tell about that you're going through?
Oh, I could look over at my table there too. Oh, there's so many. I mean, honestly, like when I say a small list of things I'm looking into, it's a really small fraction of it. To clean, I mean, one of the thing I'm going to do after I talk to you is try to find out just how effective ultrasonic cleaning is for lab equipment, because normally we use an autoclave, but sometimes it's really hard to get residue off of lab equipment from certain chemicals. So, and then, okay, we just started the 3AD experiment. So I've got this German guy here who's got an awesome physique, pretty much as good as you can get naturally. And he's ready to step it up and take something. So he's starting on 3AD, 50 milligrams twice per day. He's going to go get his blood work done tomorrow morning and then start tomorrow morning with the 3AD after the blood work experiment. We're going to get his blood work done on the 10th day and see if he's got any natural testosterone, estrogen, SHBG suppression. And then after that, we're going to put him on the blue ox and black ox and see if there is suppression. Is blue and black ox strong enough to counteract any of the suppression from the 3AD? Because he is taking a fairly high dosage. 100 milligrams of 3AD is fairly high for that as a pro-hormone. I think a lot of people may only take 50 milligrams. I personally started taking 100 milligrams of 3AD. This is my third or fourth day now. And the reason I decided to start taking 3AD is because like when I did the bulking blast and all these, I have to take a lot more harsh compounds. And so now, since my leg is hurt, it's a good opportunity to experiment with something that isn't as harsh, because it would either be that or nothing. Like I don't really need to be on anything if I can't really train that hard except for to maintain. So I might as well just switch to 3AD. That way I can start to see how my body reacts to it. It'll be the third time I took it, but the previous times there was too many variables, so I can't make any conclusions. This time I'll be able to tell for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that experiment. How would you compare it to SARMs? Do you think it's going to be more potent or less potent, or?
I think it's going to be less potent. I think it's going to be less potential side effects and less potent. But already SARMs already have such low side effects. So I don't think it's even though it's a newer compound. I don't think it's necessarily better than SARMs. It's just different because I think it's going to be very minimally suppressive on testosterone, for example. So for a natural lifter whose top priority is to prevent suppression or reduction in fertility or something, and even though SARMs don't suppress natural testosterone very much, maybe 3-AD suppresses it even less. And then both SARMs and 3-AD, neither of them convert to estrogen, so they have that in common. But they work differently though, because 3-AD it's a pro-hormone. It's a DHEA based pro-hormone. So it's almost like it's a manipulation of something natural, whereas SARMs are completely synthetic, and they work differently. And I'm not sure how to compare them in the real world. I never actually experimented with 4-AD and some of the other DHEA-based pro-hormones because at the time it was like, why? I've got so many SARMs experiments to do, and I know SARMs are powerful, and I have all these theories about SARMs. And even though enhanced actually carried out the other pro-hormones, I still never. I tried them for safety. I wanted to make sure nothing bad happened, and nothing bad happened when I took the pro-hormones. But other than that, this will be like my first pro-hormone besides Superdrol and DMZ. Actually, there's a lot of steroids that are actually pro-hormones. This will be my first DHEA-based pro-hormone experiment that I actually followed through with, we'll say.
Nice. You never used the 1 DHEA or the 4 DHEA derivatives?
I used plain DHEA and 7-keto DHEA, you know, the ones that are just precursors to other natural hormones, not necessarily as an anabolic.
In the US, I think the DHEA and 7-keto DHEA is like over the counter, right?
Yeah. You know, I'm thinking back like when it's possible back when Mark McGuire got busted for taking pro-hormones, he was taking one of the andros, one of the earliest andros. I may have taken one of them back then, some of them. I just don't remember. But, you know, pro-hormones, those andro pro-hormones were around since, let's see, I graduated high school in 2000. So it was around that time that's when the Mark McGuire whole, you know, pro-hormones were happening when I was in high school.
Nice. And also a thing I wanted to mention is that you've written some protocols that you're using, and it's many things. And I also take this approach that if I have some serious inflammation, I'm taking like, even though I'm taking mostly like everything basically over the counter stuff, I'm taking like 20 things at once, and people tell like, oh, you should try one or these two things and let it work for a while and stuff. I think that every or most of these things work synergistically, and you have to take them all at once for them to take maximum effect, and then maybe take some time off and not use anything. What do you think about this? Because I think we both have the same approach, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, the perfect example is hydroxychloroquine, where sure, they do a study where they just use that by itself, and yeah, it works okay to cure, you know, certain viruses. But when you combine hydroxychloroquine with azithromycin and zinc, it's got a 100% cure rate. And it's because, well, with that drug specifically, it enhances the body's ability to use zinc, which is a mineral that the body uses for the immune system, amongst other things. So it's all about eliminating limiting factors. You enhance, you're trying to make a sandwich. Like anything in the body is more complicated than just a piece of meat. To make a sandwich requires bread and lettuce and meat and mayonnaise, tomato, whatever. And so giving your body a bunch of bread doesn't make more sandwiches. Then you're going to be limited by the amount of meat and lettuce. But if you give your body the meat, the lettuce, the bread, your body can take all of those materials together and make a sandwich. And the immune system's the same way. That's why, the current virus is so easy to cure with herbs and supplements, but it's not just any one herb. It's a mix of herbs, because you got to increase the body's ability to identify the virus. You got to increase make sure you've got adequate white blood cells to attack the virus. And you've got to, you have to have cell permeability. It's where one cell and you have to have the ability for the body to identify which cells are pathogenic and which ones aren't. And there's so many components to the immune system. To take one thing that affects one small part of the immune system and completely ignore the rest of it, it's ridiculous. And the problem is Western medicine, they're trying to patent compounds and patent drugs, and they want one drug to do one thing. And it's a completely wrong way to treat the human body. And they brainwash doctors into thinking this way too. So if the doctor can't find one thing that solves that problem, then nothing exists. There's no cure. Or they do they use the one thing and then, or to treat the symptoms, because they can't actually cure the disease. Whereas if they took a holistic approach, then many of the problems in the human body are easy to solve. And it's easy also to become superhuman, enhance the body above baseline using a holistic approach. But it's the same problem in bodybuilding, where bodybuilders take a bunch of steroids. And so what? They're activating one pathway of growth. What about cortisol? What about myostatin? What about IGF, insulin, growth hormone, inflammation? There's so many different parts to the muscle building process. Or what about taking steroids and then not increasing calories? Not really going to build that much more muscle, right? So it's all about eliminating the limiting factor, addressing every pathway, and using synergy between them. Exactly.
And what do you think about growth hormone and medicine? Because here in Europe, the doctors only prescribe growth hormone for for height issues. That if you're in your teenage and you don't grow a lot. But I mean, for me, I have osteoporosis, that basically my bones are so skinny and so thin that they're really vulnerable to any damage, and they don't want to prescribe me any growth hormone. So what do you think about growth hormone and medicine? Do you think it's underused for many conditions?
Yeah, the main reason it's underused is because you can't really patent growth hormone. The way that these pharmaceutical companies are patenting it is through the delivery method and the preservatives. Like what's in it besides the growth hormone. But growth hormone's a naturally occurring hormone, so it's always dangerous for the pharmaceutical industry to put money into research or promoting or marketing anything that's a natural hormone, because they are going to have a very limited timeline for their monopoly before other companies are going to be able to create something very similar and also get a patent on something similar. So that's the main financial reason, which is the main reason why anything happens in medicine. Another is growth hormone is actually kind of like a pro-hormone, mother hormone. It breaks down into many, many other different peptides, more peptides than we even know. And growth hormone could actually be a cure for so many diseases, or help so many different diseases, like a cure-all. And if there's one thing Western medicine doesn't want, it's something that can cure, it has many, many different applications and can cure many, many different things. And so there's another reason. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons against growth hormone being promoted by Western medicine. Also, growth hormone's main use is like anti-aging, which is not technically a disease, and Western medicine doesn't deal with things that are not diseases. In fact, it's almost like a negative taboo to use chemistry in Western medicine, to use chemistry to enhance yourself beyond the average individual, to become superhuman. Like Western medicine, everything is written against that. They don't want people to be better than human. And growth hormone has that capability. What's going to be really interesting is all these other peptides that are being discovered. Are they going to be suppressed? Is the information going to be suppressed? Or as they discover them, are they going to let the information out? Now, I know there's so much tremendous benefits to these peptides beyond what the research is even showing, and time will tell that. But it makes you wonder why there isn't even more research on some of these peptides, because now there's thousands of them. I mean, I talked to Dr. Janquish, the editor of basically the steroid and hormone medical journal, and he's like, I'm one of the most knowledgeable people in the world on this stuff, and I can tell you there's hundreds of peptides that have to do something to do with muscle growth that we don't even know what they do. So you can imagine how much research is being done, but how much is being suppressed if it doesn't actually result in basically a monopoly for some pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, 100. I agree 100% because it metabolizes in the liver, and we know just a few peptides that are most effective, but there could be thousands, even 100,000 of them.
Yeah. That's why I take growth hormone, because I don't even know what other peptides could be involved in this healing process, right? We know TB500 and BPC157, but there's probably 10 other peptides that'll help with the healing process. So I take the ones I know that work, but then I also take the growth hormone, because then my body can make use of what it needs. I'm giving it basically the raw material for it to heal itself. Because I believe in the body healing itself. The body is amazing. I don't know that I always felt this way, but the more experience I have in traveling the world and seeing all these different approaches to medicine, the more I realize the human body can heal itself. You just got to give it the materials. And I think of growth hormone as like the parent peptide that gives the materials for my body to make what peptides it needs to heal what it needs to heal.
And what do you think about nutrition? Do you think, like, for example, like when you're hurt like this, do you think that it would be more beneficial for your body to fast and maybe drink plenty of water and basically overhydrate yourself so you can flush the toxins out and let the body absorb more water and just don't fast? Or what do you think?
So if my top priority above all else in my life was to heal this injury 100% and properly, what I would probably do is give my body plenty of adequate protein and calories for the initial part of the healing process. After the initial part of the healing process, then I would probably do fasting, because there's something about fasting that allows the body to heal things that didn't heal before, like to complete the healing process. And I think we talked about this before also. Like, I want to make sure I 100% heal this. So I don't know that I want to fast. I mean, I've done it before, but I just don't know if I'll feel like doing it. So my way of trying to get close to 100% as possible, then giving myself as much nutrition and as much raw building materials and things that my body can make the hormones with as possible to heal it. So I'm doing that, but I'm not saying that that's the best way, because I am aware of studies showing that fasting is actually really effective for injury recovery. I'm just probably not going to take that route right now. Maybe I will later.
Probably the 9-time munchies are stronger than the will to heal fully.
Yeah, and you have to consider like sleep being one of the most important factors in recovery. And if fasting was going to interfere with my sleep, then maybe it's the risks outweigh the benefit. For me, I sleep there's always this debate on whether to eat before bed or not, and I even go back and forth. But what I've learned recently is not to fight it. If I feel like I need to eat carbs before bed, I eat a lot of carbs, like cereal or something, and then I sleep really good. If I feel like I'm a little hungry and I need to eat and I don't, I just can't sleep.
Yeah, I used to be like that as well, but right now I'm on keto for like it's third month, and my body adapted, and right now it's not a problem.
Oh, nice. You're lucky. I wish I could. I could, I guess, I suppose. Just the
And,
first part of the painful process, getting used to not eating carbs again.
and the
I will need to
keto,
do that again soon. I'm going to get shredded like Joe Aesthetics.
yeah, he's really shredded. I've seen the videos you did with him, and he looks great.
And he came out public about taking steroids with the last couple days, too.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it. And with the keto, for me, the inflammation went really down, like a lot, and I am really more productive because my blood sugar isn't crashing. In the middle of the day, I can make a full day worth of creative work, and it's just better. Honestly, if I would have to stay on keto and not build any muscle, I would probably stay on keto for my whole life, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very healthy and very good for productivity. I agree.
Yeah, but the only thing I'm looking forward to is to go off keto, import some carbs, and build some muscle because I feel I'm not like that much more skinny. It's probably like 6 or 7 kilos, but for me, it feels like I don't know, like 50 kilos. It feels like I'm so skinny because the muscle is so flat. You know what I mean? Even though it got
Yeah.
a little bit bigger, it was the most flat it was like for the first month, and then the second and the third month is much better. I'm just fuller, but it's still not the full you get from the carbs.
Right. And you're going to be so sensitive to the carbs in a good way. When you carb up, it's going to feel amazing. You're going to, when, after you do keto or you go no carb and then you carb up, all of a sudden, then you, after, even like today, you're like, oh my God, it's so amazing being on keto. I feel so good. But then when you carb up and you feel so full and strong and your muscles are bursting because they were starving for carbs, then you'll be like, oh, I can't believe I ever did keto. I wish I'm going to do carbs forever. But then, of course, you lose that sensitivity. You can't maintain that level of fullness. So that's why it's kind of fun to go back and forth. You know, you got a small transition part back into keto that's not always fun, but all the rest of it, carving back up and then being in keto and then training on the carbs, like, oh, that's amazing. So much better than just like eating the same amount of carbs every day. I really think that changing the diet up, like our bodies respond so much better to changing the diet, not just being like this many carbs every day, this much protein every day.
And you know what? I actually think I've built some muscle, but it's like it could be like, let's say 20, 30 grams of muscle or 50 grams, but it's like you really see it, but it's like it's gonna stay there. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
if you take higher dosage of carbs and carb up, like next week add 50 grams of carbs, maybe 2 weeks after add 50 grams of carbs, and keep adding, yeah, you get bigger, but it's like you get bloated. Not like bloated like fat, but I mean the water inside the muscle is just bigger and bigger. And then when you start dieting, it's gonna fade away, and then you're like, okay, maybe I've not built so much muscle I thought I would. But on keto, it's
Yeah.
like it's a really, really slow process, but I mean, it's there.
I knew an Olympia competitor who was on practically on keto most of the time, and he was able to build muscle on it. But I think that had a lot to do with genetics. He had amazing genetics. Um, you know, for us, people of Europe who also fast metabolisms, smaller bone, pretty hard to put the muscle. And definitely do your best to do it, but I would plan on your biggest muscle growth coming from those times carbs. Not temporary muscle growth, but still also the permanent muscle growth. Use fat loss, the health, when you want to put on muscle in a short period of time, but not
Aren't you
temporary.
covering your microphone because you're skipping on some words?
Yeah, sorry, I had my hand over it. Yep, that's better, right?
Yeah, a lot better.
So, my battery's also gonna die in a couple minutes. I'll just say that I think one diet I would consider that balances health and muscle growth and fat loss, like it does all really well. I think is you do something like a keto diet, and then you do these short little blasts where you have a ton of carbs and you get your IGF-1 levels up really high, and then use that for muscle growth, and then transition back to health and fat loss with something like a keto diet.
Yeah, I think the same thing. How long have you stayed the most on keto? What's the longest time?
When I first did it, I did it for a month, and I was 14 years old, so that was 24 years ago. And then the second longest, or the first, that was the second longest I did. The first longest was 7 weeks, and that was for my first bodybuilding competition. And that I didn't even have rice. I didn't have rice, oatmeal, nothing, no sugar, no honey. I mean, it was just meat and nuts and oil.
And you look really good. I remember the pictures. You look really good.
I felt good, and think I was running a law office at that time with, I probably had 15 employees at that time. So I'm running a big law firm. I'm going to court every day. I'm doing cardio in the morning for an hour, cardio at night for an hour, and weight training. And I'm probably working like 12 hours a day. Man, I was on fire on keto. Like my energy was unstoppable. I remember thinking like I felt like some kind of mutant. I felt like I was getting the work of 4 people done, 4 times as much work as a normal human could do, and that was largely from the keto, just endless energy. So I know that productivity was incredible.
That's how I feel like right now. And it's like if somebody asks me about anything, I'm like, boy, that was like 4 days ago, and they're like, no, it was yesterday. But it's that I'm productive like for like the whole day, that sometimes I feel like the one day is like 4 days, you know? It's like
I
I
take the
get
opposite.
work done.
Take the opposite of that. When you're a bodybuilder and your IGF and your growth hormone and your insulin levels up and you're eating huge amounts of carbs, I mean, you just want to sit down and sleep all day. You don't even hardly want to get out of the. I mean, that's the hardest part about these transformations. You're like, oh my god, I've got to walk to the refrigerator. Oh, you're breathing heavy. Oh man, that's why I think it's nice to do that in a short burst of time. You can't. It's hard to live like a professional bodybuilder all the time.
By the way, good thing you reminded the transformation, because I was thinking like how you're psychically with it, because you've gone through the transformation, gained a lot of muscle, and right now you can hold on to muscle because you have to just rest, and I mean, I've seen that you're training, but it's obviously much less intense. So how are you dealing with that physically?
So yeah, I'll say my battery's gonna die soon, by the way. But I was thinking if I was an audience member watching me, I'd say, this guy Tony Huge is doing transformations all the time. Why isn't he 400 pounds of muscle? He takes so much steroids, all this and stuff. But no, the truth is I do these short blasts. Like I just did that 1 week blast, and I did put on a lot of muscle. And then look at this. Now I'm injured. I'm cruising. I'm not taking anything. I'm just taking a pro hormone. And that's kind of how my life is. Like there's these short bursts of time. I choose to do an experiment where I make tons of progress, and then I shift my focus to other things. So I'm not like the typical bodybuilder that does like these long cycles and slow, steady progress, and everything planned out long term. focus, trying to put on as much muscle as possible in my lifetime. It's just totally different. So yeah, it sucks that I can't train like normal to maintain it. I mean, my legs are what's going to really disappear here. But I was surprised yesterday in the gym on day 3 or 4 of the injury. So let's say 4 days of not training hard. I was still 200. Oh no, I forget. I was still over 230 pounds. So it's surprising. I would have thought I would be losing more weight. But I'm sort of maintaining. I think I set a new set point. The more muscle you build, and then the longer you hold on to that muscle, your body sort of says, okay, this is the new normal. I hate that the pandemic took that word, but this is the new normal for our body. And so it becomes easier to maintain that. And that's one thing I really love about having gotten to where I am with bodybuilding now, is that I can maintain a pretty awesome physique with very little effort. Whereas before, I was very high maintenance physique. I had to work so hard to look good.
Right. Any last things you want to say for the audience?
No, I'd say keep following the 3AD experiment. So there's the 3AD.com website that has that's the product that we're using, the 3AD. And we'll on the YouTube channel, there's the Anabolic Heroes, Elite Athlete, and Tony Huge Censored, and some other YouTube channels. And I have to just keep checking those, because as always, I get censored in every different platform. So check for the current experiments.
Okay, Tony, thanks a lot for having you again on the podcast. I hope we will do more podcasts in the future, because you're an amazing guest. I love the way you're thinking. I love the way you're living your life, and how you present yourself. So thanks a lot for the opportunity to have you here.
All right, and look forward to when you can make it over here to Thailand, and we'll do a podcast in person.
Yeah, I hope so. But the COVID stuff here, they're gonna probably close the borders again, so it's really hard.
Okay. After all this, then.
Yeah. Okay, listeners. Bye.